So the ocean then receded. There's a place for all the water to go.
Yeah. Hang on, I gotta figure if I got the recording. Yeah, I do. Okay. Yeah, no, it's yeah. Okay. So the water, all that water that you got to remember now, all the water that covered the earth had to go somewhere, you know. But again, you've got so if you had, say you had this high, say that's where the water was before the flood, and here's a mountain. Now what you've got is after all the cataclysm, there's that catechism. It's like the ocean floor gets deeper and the mountains get higher, which gives more room for the volumes of water. But you got to remember what it says. It fills up the oceans because the land is dry and the oceans are full. And that's where you need a, you know, that's
not really, you're going to have clouds, which they
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is that the water's got to go somewhere. The land is dry. The oceans are full. And we have Earth the way that it is kind of today. Okay. And then even what Ray talks about with the evaporation, the clouds, remember, you don't have that canopy any longer that held all of that water. You've got the sun rays coming in. You got the sun rays coming in. Now, this is what I read some time ago. Couldn't even tell you from whom. Is that the oceans warmed up, okay? And that I want to say that the humidity back in the air caused the ice age. You know? So then you got the ice age and all the woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. Did they elude the ice? Yeah. Yeah. That may be too. Yeah. Okay. But so you got all these things going on that you don't take into consideration, and it could be that God did all that to make the earth the way it is today. I mean, even in his judgment, he had a good motive for making the earth that way. I don't know. Right. Yeah. I just did the record. I forgot it earlier. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that's brought up in the commentary in the book here says that the flood was judgment, but chapter 8 starts redemption.
Right.
I'm sure you were going to bring that up.
Yeah. Yeah. So then it says the tops of the mountains were seen. And the fact that it says the tops of the mountains were seen, again, another good indication that it's a worldwide flood, not a local flood. Because people can say, wow, that was a big flood, covered up that hill over there. But I see other hills or other mountains over there. And what it's indicating here is that there was no mountains, to be seen. So, okay. Can somebody want to read 6 through 12? Okay.
So it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. Then he sent out a raven, which kept going to and fro until the waters had dried up from the earth. He also sent out from himself a dove to see if the waters had receded from the face of the ground. But the dove found no resting place for the sole of her foot, and she returned into the ark to him, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and drew her into the ark to himself. And he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent the dove out from the ark. Then the dove came to him in the evening, and behold, a freshly plucked olive leaf was in her mouth. And Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. So he waited yet another 7 days and sent out the dove, which did not return again to him anymore.
Man, I don't know. He's a pretty sharp guy. Yeah. I wonder how this water thing, I wonder if he felt the water receding. I mean,
Probably at the bottom of the boat, pounding on the
Yeah.
top of a hill.
There you go.
Look out.
Yeah.
The olive branch side of the.
The olive, right? Right. Yeah. Comes along. All these things. We talked about this once long time ago, is that all of the sayings that we use in our common, culture, and all these symbols and stuff all come out of the Bible. I mean, I had a list of, I must have had 100 different sayings that we say that are all biblical sayings that nobody thinks about being biblical sayings, but they came out of the Bible, but just something we use in our common language. And so pardon? Well, no, that could be. And then you take like the dove with the olive branch, and we've made that into, a symbol of peace. But where would people have gotten that if not from the Bible? And I don't know when that would have started, like that. But I mean, but again, it shows you the impact. I wonder, and maybe there is. I just wonder if worldwide, I'm talking about, I wonder if there's any other book that has that kind of impact, that's impacted culture and language and art and stuff like that. I mean,
what happened to the Raven?
Pardon?
What happened to the Raven?
Didn't it say? He went.
The Raven.
He went. No. Okay, well, I'll tell you what happened to the Raven, but it doesn't say, right?
No.
So I'm making this up, but it's probably good. Is that a raven is one of those what do you call them? Scavengers, like that. So there's probably dead animals floating in the sea, and so he probably lands on them and says, something to eat. That's what I've always kind of guessed at. What's that?
That's what I was told, that he probably landed on some cadaver.
Yeah, and just had a meal and said, hey, you go. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So it said at the end of 40 days, so it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window. So it stops raining, okay? And he's wanting to see what's happening. He says he sent out the raven, which kept going to and fro until the waters had dried up from the earth. So he just went. But he also sent out from him a dove. Now, I have no idea what the difference is between a raven and a dove, of why he would think he would get a different response from a dove. But he's Noah, and he's smarter than us, okay? I don't know. Do they? I don't know. Yeah. No, I know what they do. Yeah, I know what they do here. Yeah.
Nobody goes raven hunting. They do.
Last Sunday I'm sitting on the couch and I'm reading something, and Janet had gone in the bedroom to lay down, and I hear against the sliding glass door, bang. And then right after that, bang. And she jumps up and she goes, what was that? I go, I think a couple of birds hit the thing. They were quail, and two of them, they were laying there with their necks broken. And I'm going, okay, good thing Noah didn't send them out. I mean, they don't sound too bright. Oh,
Just in the notes here, Noah used birds to secure information. The failure of the scavenger bird to return tells Noah that there is more than a blank waste of water outside the ark, to and fro, perhaps from carcass to carcass, until the waters were dried up. The raven stayed in the area of the ark until conditions improved.
Huh? Could be.
But the dove was more particular than a raven about a place to land. Wouldn't land on on carrion.
Yeah, well, he's not that kind of a bird. So
It says that olives do not grow on high. So
yeah,
the olive tree would be low. That's what is happening in olives.
yeah. Well, but that would be another good thing. Can the plants survive all those days underwater. Of course, you could have picked up a branch that was floating, but I don't know what that would have, would have told them. We don't know. I mean, we don't know. All we can do is go by the story and say, okay, this is the story. So it said he opened the window of the ark, which he had made. So since it was closed and you had 20,000 animals or whatever, he probably took a deep breath first, when he opened it. Like that. Yeah. So anyway, so he opened the window, he sent the raven out. We already discussed that. It said the dove found no resting place. She returned to the ark. So that went out. I'm at fail safe. I better turn around and and come back. Came back, and then I wonder if he sent the same dove. Or if that one said, I'm not going back out there. But anyway, I sent the other dove, and then what we discussed with the, with the olive, with the olive branch. So that told Noah something, okay, that there's at least less water out there, than there was, before. So the dove came, a freshly plucked olive leaf was in her mouth. The raven never returned, but the dove came back, with the evidence that something was different. So, let's see. And then the dove didn't return, I guess, the next time. Oh, yeah. So they sent the dove back out, and then the dove didn't return. So they figured, okay, there's a dove-friendly area that's out there. Okay. So in verse 13, it says, and it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, that the waters were dried up from the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and indeed the surface of the ground was dry. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried. And obviously they're talking about the parts that are supposed to be dry, because there's ocean still. Hudson. There you go. First Happy New Year. Think about it. I mean, think about that. Noah and the family don't know a whole bunch about what's happening. It just, God's going to make judgment. God's going to make water. I'm sealing you in this ark. I'm pretty much, trust me. Maybe after the first day, I say, okay, how much longer do I have to trust you? Okay. I mean, it makes it sound like they didn't open the windows to look out, or any of that. We would do, wouldn't we do that? I mean, if we're modern day people today, wouldn't we go sneak a peek outside to see what the heck was happening? And I'm assuming that no, so they don't know all that. And then he's trying to judge the water, with the birds. And then he waits longer, And then finally he takes the covering to go look, and the ground is dry. So you got to figure the ship is, on dry land, sitting there. And you got to think, well, I wonder what they thought.
Well, they don't come out of the ark until they're invited out by God.
Yeah.
Out of the ark.
Yeah.
They could have stayed in there forever.
Yeah. Well, for all they know, it's radioactive out there. Like when in the old 1950s sci-fi movies, when the spaceship landed someplace and they were in their spacesuits and nobody knew what was out there, if there was Martians or. There you go. Yeah. So they don't know, and I get a little bit ahead, but when they come out, it's a whole new world. It's not the world they left. It's a whole new, first of all, there's nobody there. Pardon? Well, it may have, but they had food with them on the ark, so they probably had, they probably had leftovers. And so we don't know. But that's a good point, because again, that's where people will speculate and they'll say, well, you know what, the ground was so pure because it had been washed, all sin had been washed away. So however the Garden of Eden grew, that's the way this would grow. And because of the way the sunlight now reacted on the earth, that made giant, you don't like that. So, and let's see. So let's see. The earth was dried. So nearly 6 months after the flood began, the water started receding, and the ark came to rest on a mountain in the Ararat area of what today is Turkey. And after another 6 months, an olive branch in the dove's beak signaled that it was now safe for Noah and his family to safely leave the ark. So, but here, God's using nature to dictate what's happening. Pardon? Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. And, and here's another thing. It seems like when you go through the genealogies, you get to Noah, and it says, and he had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But nowhere does it ever say they have grandkids. Yeah. And then when they're in the ark for all that time, they had some time there to hatch some grandkids, but we don't have any grandkids there. There's probably something about the ark that's not earth, and that's not the place that people should be born or something. I don't know. It's just that we don't see grandkids until we get into the next sets of genealogies. So in verse 15, it says, then God spoke to Noah, saying, and this is what Ray was talking about, go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and your sons' wives with you. Bring with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds and cattle, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they may abound on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So as they were commanded to come into the ark, they're commanded to come out of the ark. As he was commanded to take the animals into the ark, he's commanded to take them out of the ark. And that and then he gives the command again to be fruitful and multiply. That the animals are to be fruitful and multiply. Y'all are supposed to be fruitful and multiply. And in 19 it says, every animal, every creeping thing, every bird, and whatever creeps on the earth according to their families went out of the ark. I mean, I'm thinking these creeping things, I think we may have discussed this before, like insects and mosquitoes. I guess they could fly out. Now here's the important part. It says, then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings to on the altar. And the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake. Although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. A couple of things here is that Noah knew to do a sacrifice, knew to build an altar. I mean, he knew what seems to be the steps to do it right. Because he could have just taken a clean animal and sacrificed it to God without an altar, just did it on the ground. Said, hey, I hear this is what you like. You like to have a, but you need to build an altar. So, again, these are these communications that happen between God and Noah, probably happened between God and Adam, probably happened between God and Enoch, because Enoch, remember, he got taken because he was righteous. all these people probably had some communication from God, or if it started with Adam and was passed down, Adam must have told it clear enough for them to understand. Although in the beginning he didn't give the instructions to Eve very well, because she ate from the fruit of the tree. But somehow they know the right way to do it. Somehow man is built to listen to God and to know what God wants. That it's not like a mystery. And I think over time we've made it a mystery, a mystery, and we complicate it, because then people come up with all these crazy things. I was talking to God the other day and God told me to do, and that just clouds so here's what it does is then people say, God really doesn't speak to people because look at the crazy message that he gave. If that was true, look at the crazy message that he gave. Who are these people that say God told me to kill my kids? So there's got to be a way to distinguish it. But here was the thing. We'll get back to the sacrifice itself. But he says, I'll never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Didn't he say that back in chapter 6 when he was talking about the sons of God and the daughters of man? So all of a sudden, we don't have a Noah family that's pure. Because everybody's going to come from those 8 people. Okay? So he may have cleansed the earth, and Noah may have been right. Doesn't say his family, doesn't say his wife was righteous, didn't say his kids were righteous. And it just said Noah was righteous. And then I talked about last week how it said in his generation. So for in his time, he did good enough to, so he won the trophy. But he uses the same term here, and he's talking to these same 8 people. So this is where trouble's going to start again. But he says he's not going to do the same action.
At that point, people were doing their own individual sacrifices to God. So you didn't have to go and have somebody else do the sacrificing for you. That was established later.
Well, it probably established when you come up to Moses and he establishes the priesthood. Okay. Yeah. And I have no idea because I don't think that I'm trying to think, because the first person we would see it from would have to be Abraham. And I don't know the first time we'd see Abraham doing sacrifice, or if we know Abraham was going to do the big sacrifice with Isaac. We don't know like that. But yeah, they were probably doing it themselves, or I'd have to look at it. Tune in next week and I'm going to figure this one out.
Because Cain and Abel were making sacrifices.
Right.
One was acceptable to God, and then we go through all of this, and the people there were working, so they must not have been doing any sacrifices other than maybe knowing his family were the ones who were doing sacrifices.
Now I got a feeling, since you've brought it up, is that Noah was probably doing the sacrifice for the family. And maybe that's something with the headship of man in a family, is that a man takes care of those things for the family. And we find throughout the Bible, men do a woeful job of doing that.
That would show too that he was doing sacrifices for his family.
Right. And see, Job's going to be at the same time as Abraham. So I guess I'll have to look into see what was expected of Job and Abraham. But that's a good point. Hudson.
Noah's been doing sacrifices for hundreds of years. Why would he stop?
Well, we don't know that did.
Yeah, but he did. That's why he was selected by God to build the ark.
It could be, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying we don't know because it doesn't say. So you don't have to leave. That's the curse I put on you. Anyway, so, but, well, I don't know, if maybe you can hear me in there. Anyway, but see, but this is the thing, what you say, somehow Noah knows, and maybe Noah was doing it for, all that time. We just know he got off the ark, he knew what to, what to do. We do that, we get in trouble, and then instead of looking to God, we say, "Oh, don't worry, God, I handled it." Hey, God, don't worry, I got this boat on land. So anyway, so he left the ark, he built the thing. Here was the thing. It says, and the Lord, and this is in verse 21, and the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Okay? God likes barbecue. Hey, if you ever want a biblical thing about why you're barbecuing on a Sunday, you say, lifting up the aroma to the Lord, just like Noah did. Works for me.
No pork.
What's that?
No pork on Sunday.
No, there you go. Anyway, so, but that's the thing, is that when it talks about that God has that aroma and it brings him pleasure, it's not the aroma itself, it's the fact that his people are offering up the sacrifices, for doing that. So let's see. At the end of let's see. So what he said in verse 21. Let me go back to this part. And he says, "I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done." And then in 22 it says, "While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease." What he's saying is, as long as you got, the sun coming up in the morning and the sun going down in the evening, and you have planting season, you have harvest season, whatever he's talking about in here, that's a sign, just like the rainbow we'll see. It's a sign that God's blessing is on people, that he's not going to destroy. That's a big big verse there. So
well, he said he would destroy by water.
Said he would. Well, he said he said that he wouldn't destroy. Well, you know what though is that let's see. "I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart." He doesn't even say that he won't destroy. Peter talks about it later. Peter talks about, in the end times that the earth will be destroyed by fire. Oh yeah, but God doesn't discuss that. He doesn't say, "Yeah, I'll never drown you people again, but watch your backside because I got fire up here and I'll throw lightning bolts down." He's not talking about that. He's talking about preserving his people. When God, usually, I only say usually because I can't think of it's every time. When God is speaking to his people, he's talking good stuff. Hey, I'm not going to destroy you guys again. When he, even in the flood, speaking to his people was get on the ark. That's good stuff. That's gospel. That's grace. To his not my people, the words are different. The actions are different. So, so usually you could read through the Bible and pick out who he's talking to by how he's talking, how he's talking to them. And if he is talking to who we would consider Christians, but it sounds bad, it's probably because God maybe doesn't think that they're Christians. And that goes back to those "I never knew yous." Like in Mark 7, where he's talking what you think he's talking to. He's talking to a group of people who are just kind of assuming that they're Christians, but they've never really committed to follow, in the right way. But they still say, "Lord, Lord," and all that. But he says, I think it's in Mark 7, but he talks about, you know, not everyone who calls me Lord will enter my kingdom. I never knew you. So anyway, so if you read that kind of stuff, even if the people that we think are Christians, could be a chance that God's not thinking that they're, that they're Christians. And then he says, repent.
People who get different things on the way around. God help them all the time. Different things.
Yeah. But the problem is that the different opinions may be actually denials. Yeah, it's not just, well, I see God this way, if that's not the way God has described himself in the Bible, then it's a denial of Jesus. I know it's hard to understand. So, but what I'm just saying is that, there's just not an insurmountable number of opinions that are allowed when you're describing who Jesus is and what constitutes his people. Yeah. So when people say, well, can't it be like this? Chances are no, can't be.
We're going to have a sentence, right?
With who?
Sentence. The differences in the sentence. Some changing. Time and person standards. Review standards. We should have to say.
Well, but as far as synods go, though, synods are, those, where it talks in the scriptures about man-made traditions. Synod is nothing but man-made traditions.
Because of language.
Well, no, but I'm saying, well, that's where different denominations are coming. Obviously, if you got Norwegian Lutheran Church and a German Lutherans, they probably can't sit in the same service at the same time because they wouldn't understand. So you end up with a Norwegian congregation, a Lutheran congregation, but that doesn't mean that there's a divide. But I know what you're talking about, but all I'm saying is that synods, even denominations, that's all the traditions of man. You'll have people look at Pastor Skip preach in his clerical shirt and come unglued that he doesn't have full vestments on, because that's what Lutherans do. They have full vestments, but they're not doing it in 120-degree heat with 3% humidity, But I'm just saying, but like I said, there's people that would have conniptions over that, but that's totally man-made traditions that they're arguing, that they're arguing over. So we want to make sure that we separate, that. That's like the Baptists. We don't smoke, we don't drink, we don't dance. That's all man-made traditions. It works for them, and that's great. If that helps them do their worship, that's fine. It's just something you can't, impose on other people. You just have to realize. Now you talk to a Baptist, they'll tell you, no, that's the way God. I used to be a Baptist. I know that's the way God wants it to be. But again, those are just man-made type of tradition, right? And then we'll finish up because I promised early.
This also is the covenant that God is establishing with Noah is an unconditional covenant. It's strictly one-sided. God is saying, I'm promising you, you don't have to do a thing.
Yeah, no, but what you'll do is, so my covenant is with you. So if you end up by going to hell, it's what you did, not what I did. My covenant was to protect you. Your waywardness is, because we're going to see. I mean, we're going to see when we get into chapter 9, the end of chapter 9. Noah's drunkenness. Whatever it is that his son did to Noah, we're going to see that. And then we're going to see that the future nation of Canaan gets cursed. All of that because sin is still alive and well, in the church. Because Noah's family is the church. What's that?
Perfect.
Well, they weren't perfect. That's what I said. They weren't perfect because he described them as that they're, their imagination of man's heart was evil from his youth, like that. But it's just the idea. There's the church. God makes a covenant. I saved you. Here's the covenant. And I mean, we'll take a breath at a chapter break, and then it's all back to the same, it's all back to the same story. Okay. But God's covenant with Noah is still in place. And God's covenant with Noah will be in place when he makes another covenant with Abraham. And the covenant with Abraham will be in place when he makes a second covenant with Abraham. And that will be in place still when he makes a covenant with Moses. I hope I'm not leaving anybody else out. Who was after? Huh? What does that do? Yeah. Well, no, the Western Wall probably wasn't part of the temple. Well, it may have been something on the temple grounds, but it wasn't part of the temple because that was the stuff. Again, this goes back where we begin and we'll end. This goes back to how you read the Bible. If Jesus said not a stone will be left upon a stone, then you can believe that that wall was not part of what he was talking about. Because the Bible says this, so that can't be, what part of. Hey, you get into a whole thing whether the temple was even on the Temple Mount or was it down in the Valley of David, which is just like a mile down. Pardon?
All around the temple is right.
Right. Yeah, but we don't even know if it's there. But the point is, the temple is 100% irrelevant today. The temple has been 100% irrelevant since Christ died on the cross. From that moment, temple totally irrelevant. So other than the fact that it was promised to be, destroyed, it doesn't matter. So when people go to look and they're trying to find where was the temple in this, as if it matters. And other than Ray's wife, who's an archaeologist, it should matter to nobody else. But it matters to a lot of evangelicals. To them, that's the whole key to the end time scenario and Christ's return. Pardon? There is no third temple. There will be no third temple built. Well, if there's one built, it's not a temple. God resides in us. We are the temple. There is no temple. They say that the temple that's described in Ezekiel, they go, oh, there's the third temple. No, he's describing heaven, there. Huh? Oh, yeah, because the people there couldn't imagine where God would dwell if it's not in a temple. So he describes heaven as you would describe a temple. Okay, but anyway, that's here and there. Okay. That's a long ways from now. We got to get Noah. We got him off the ark now. We got to get, what's that? Got to get him drunk. What's that?
I think it would be about both.
Yeah. Here's something to think about. This will be the last thing. This is just something to drop on you. In chapter 9, God's going to give permission to eat the animals. Now, the thing I've never figured out is why did God think that people wanted to eat animals?
Okay.
Well, no. They lived all this time without eating animals, and he says, okay, so the animals are going to fear you, and you can eat them. And did the people go, oh, I've been dying for I make these sacrifices to God. I smell that barbecue. I'm like, God, oh gosh, I wish I could eat that. Well, you ever think of the people the first guy that reached into the belly of a cattle, and pulled out the liver and said, oh, that looks pretty good. I'm going to eat that. Anyway, let's